Imagine, if you will, the weight of betrayal resting on your shoulders. It does not arrive with warning. It does not knock politely on the door of your peace. No, it sneaks in, uninvited, clothed in the familiar face of someone you trusted, someone you perhaps even loved. And when the hurt arrived, it arrived without shame. They didn't whisper their insults, they shouted them. They didn't hide their actions, they carried them like banners of pride. Their goal wasn't simply to wound you, it was to wound you publicly, to leave scars that could be seen by others, as if their cruelty was something worth displaying. You stood there, heart trembling, watching as they poured salt into the spaces they once claimed to cherish. And what stung the most? It wasn't just the betrayal. It was their lack of remorse, their boldness, the shameless way they hurt you, as though your heart was disposable, your trust irrelevant, your pain insignificant. Have you ever asked yourself, how can people hurt others so freely, so confidently? Where does such arrogance come from? What happens to those who believe they can plant seeds of pain and never harvest the consequences? The world has a rhythm, a divine order set in motion by the one who sees all. You may feel invisible, overlooked, discarded by those who wronged you. But let me remind you, you are never invisible to God. Your tears have not gone unnoticed. Your sleepless nights have not been ignored. The ache in your chest, the one they caused with their shameless betrayal, has been written into the heavens. And rest assured, what they sowed into your life, they will one day reap in their own. You see, pain moves in circles. What leaves your life with force will circle back with precision. God, in His timing, allows the proud to taste the very hurt they poured into others, not as revenge, but as a lesson, not as cruelty, but as justice. They hurt you without shame, but God will let them taste that same hurt, and when that moment comes, they will not understand the weight of what they created, until it rests upon their own shoulders. Those who wound the innocent will one day be wounded by their own pride. There's a certain tragedy in watching someone harm those who've done nothing but walk in purity. The innocent carry no sword, they plot no evil, they seek no harm, and yet the world often targets them the most. You perhaps know this pain better than most. You carried a gentle spirit. You approached them with honesty. You loved without calculation, trusted without walls, and believed that goodness would be met with goodness. He hesitates, wishes it would be different, but what did they do? They turned your innocence into an opportunity to wound you, to break you, to humiliate you. Not because you deserved it, but because they believed your purity made you weak. But the truth the proud forget is this: there is nothing more dangerous than wounding the innocent. Because their protection does not come from men, it comes from God. When you wound the innocent, you write your own downfall with your actions. When you tear apart a pure soul, you set in motion a collapse you cannot escape. The proud, in their blindness, believe they are untouchable. They stand tall, heads high, mocking the quiet, trampling the gentle, believing their strength is permanent. But pride is a fragile foundation. It may look strong, it may seem untouchable, but beneath the surface cracks form, cracks that grow with every unjust act, cracks that expand with every moment they wound the innocent, without thought, without shame. God, in His divine wisdom, allows the proud to walk for a season. He gives them space, not to escape judgment, but to reveal the depths of their arrogance. They parade their cruelty, unaware that every action tightens the rope around their own pride. They climb higher, unaware that the higher they rise, the greater their fall will be. And when that fall comes, when their pride turns on them, something remarkable happens. The very arrogance that made them believe they could hurt others without consequence becomes the weapon that wounds them. Their confidence crumbles, their ego shatters, their false strength collapses under the weight of their own sins. The world may not always see the connection. They may call it fate or coincidence or bad luck, but you will know the truth. God sees the heart. God remembers the tears they caused, and God, in His perfect timing, allows those who wounded the innocent to feel the sting of their own pride turning against them. Their downfall isn't random. It is measured. It is precise. It is divine justice wrapped in humility. They wounded you without shame, but they will be wounded by their own pride. They mocked your tears, but their own will flow when God removes their comfort. There's something profoundly cruel about mocking another's tears. It isn't just an insult. It's a declaration of coldness, of disregard for human pain. They watched you cry. They saw the way your voice cracked under the weight of betrayal. They noticed the quiet way you broke behind closed doors. And instead of offering comfort, they smirked. Instead of reaching down to lift you up, they stepped on your hurt. They treated your heartbreak like entertainment, your sorrow like weakness. They mocked the very proof that you cared, that you loved, that you trusted. But the proud always forget the seasons of life do not stand still. God sees the hidden exchange, the quiet suffering you carried, the shameless confidence they walked in. And God, in His justice, has a way of rearranging the seasons. The one who mocked your tears today will one day taste their own. Not because you seek revenge, not because you wish for their ruin, but because the lessons of pain are often the only language the proud understand. Comfort is a gift they've taken for granted. They've walked through life cushioned by pride, surrounded by false peace, convinced that they are shielded from heartbreak. They believed their strength was eternal, their cruelty without consequence. But comfort is never permanent when it's built on the tears of the innocent. God does not sleep on injustice. He does not ignore the pain etched into your heart. He holds every tear as a testimony. And when the time comes, when their arrogance has run its course, God removes the very comfort they believed was untouchable. And when comfort is stripped away, when the proud are exposed, vulnerable, shaking under the weight of the very pain they mocked, their own tears flow. But these tears are different. They are not born from empathy. They are born from experience. They finally understand the agony they once dismissed. They feel the suffocating ache of heartbreak they once laughed at. They taste the bitter sorrow they once called weakness. Their own tears become their teacher. Their own heartbreak becomes their mirror. And in that mirror they see themselves for who they truly are, the ones who mocked, the ones who hurt, the ones who walked without shame. And as their comfort crumbles and their tears fall, the heavens whisper a truth long forgotten. The innocent were never weak, but the proud, they were always standing on borrowed peas. And when God takes back what they never deserved, the pain they mocked becomes the pain they live. What they took from you in arrogance, life will take from them in silence. There's a certain boldness people carry when they believe they can take from others without consequence. They take your peace, your trust, your joy, as if these things belong to them. And they do it boldly, publicly, without shame. You watched as they stripped you of your sense of safety. You witnessed them destroy your peace with reckless words, with selfish actions, with betrayal that cut deeper than any blade. And as they took from you, they smiled. They carried themselves like victors, walking proudly as though your loss was their trophy. They believed your pain was a weakness to exploit. They believed your heartbreak was proof of their power. They stood there, drenched in arrogance, convinced that they had won something meaningful by breaking you. But arrogance blinds the soul. It makes people forget that this world is not held together by their pride, but by God's justice. It makes them deaf to the quiet footsteps of consequence. You see, life has a strange way of restoring balance, but it rarely announces its arrival. When life comes to collect what was stolen, it does so without warning, without noise, without spectacle. What they took from you in arrogance, life will take from them in silence. It will not be loud, it will not be dramatic. One by one, the very things they held tightly will slip through their fingers. Their peace will evaporate, their false confidence will crack. The relationships they abused to gain status will crumble. The reputation they thought was invincible will corrode, and they will not see it coming, because arrogance never looks down long enough to notice the ground shaking beneath its feet. There is no joy in watching another fall, but there is divine order in seeing the scales of justice return to balance. God does not forget what they took from you. He does not overlook your sleepless nights, your silent prayers, your aching spirit. Every loss you endured became a line in the story heaven is still writing. A story that ends with justice. Life moves with quiet precision. The same hands that built their arrogance will tremble with regret when they realize what's gone. And it will be gone, not in chaos, but in quiet, undeniable removal. What was once theirs will become dust. What they built on your brokenness will collapse under their pride. And when they stand alone, stripped of the very things they believed were untouchable, they will remember you, not as the weak one, but as the one life defended without speaking a word. God allows the shameless to rise, only to let their fall be loud and humbling. It's one of life's most painful contradictions, to watch those who hurt others rise, to see them walk with boldness, with applause, with opportunity. You stood there, wounded, watching them thrive. You heard their names whispered in admiration, saw doors open for them, even after they hurt you without shame. And inside you wondered, how can this be justice? How does the world reward those who wound the innocent? But you must understand, God sees the entire story, not just the chapter you're trapped in. Sometimes God allows the shameless to rise, not as a gift, but as a setup. Not as a reward, but as the beginning of their fall. Prideful people often mistake God's patience for approval. They see open doors and assume heaven is applauding them. They confuse temporary success with eternal favor. And so they climb higher and higher, oblivious to the cracks beneath their foundation. Their pride grows with every step. Their ego swells with every victory. Their confidence blooms with every undeserved applause. But God is not deceived. He allows them to rise, not to protect their pride, but to expose it. He lets the crowd cheer, the world admire, the platform grow, because the higher they ascend, the louder their fall will echo. And when that fall comes, it will not be quiet, it will not be hidden. The same voices that once celebrated them will question them. The same stage that elevated them will betray them. The same opportunities they flaunted will turn to ashes. God knows how to humble the shameless in a way no human hand can. The fall is not random. it is crafted. God orchestrates moments of exposure, of collapse, of undeniable reckoning. And when pride meets pavement, when arrogance meets reality, the world watches and heaven whispers. You cannot mock pain without meeting it. You cannot walk in shameless cruelty and escape the consequences. Their rise was temporary, their fall, loud, humbling, unforgettable. Your pain was public, their regret will be even louder. There's a unique sting in experiencing pain that unfolds in the public eye. You didn't get to weep in private. You didn't have the luxury of hiding your heartbreak behind locked doors. No. Your pain was displayed, exposed, stripped bare for others to see. They hurt you, and they did it where eyes could watch, where whispers could spread, where your weakness could become entertainment for those who never truly understood your heart. And the ones who caused that pain, they stood proud, they smiled at your collapse. They wore their arrogance like armor, certain that hurting you without shame was their right. They didn't lower their voices. They didn't hide their cruelty. They let their betrayal bloom in the sunlight, daring anyone to challenge them. But the God who sees in secret also brings justice in the open. What was done to you publicly, what was stolen, broken, humiliated, God remembers every detail. Your tears may have dried, but your suffering is etched into eternity's record. And God, in His timing, ensures that regret will not arrive in whispers, it will roar. Their regret will not be hidden behind polite smiles or quiet apologies. It will unfold like a storm, crashing through the walls of their pride. Their downfall will be visible. Their sorrow will be undeniable. The same eyes that watched your pain will witness their regret. The same mouths that mocked your heartbreak will whisper of their collapse. And the loudest part of their regret? It won't be their words. It will be their silence. The absence of confidence, the crumbling of their image, the weight of knowing they destroyed something pure and cannot undo the damage. Regret has a way of following people like a shadow, a constant reminder that choices have consequences, that pain has a return address. They believed your public pain was the end of your story, but God never leaves His children in humiliation. He lifts the broken, restores the discarded, and humbles the arrogant in ways that echo beyond what the human eye can ignore. The regret they tried to avoid will become the very sound that drowns out their pride, and when it happens, you won't need to seek revenge. Their own hearts will remind them of what they lost, what they destroyed, and how loudly regret speaks when God is the author of justice. They thought your heartbreak was entertainment. God will turn their laughter into lament. It's a cruel thing when people reduce your heartbreak to entertainment. They see your tears as amusement. They take your suffering and twist it into a story they laugh about, whisper about, mock in their circles. You stood there, heart torn apart, believing your vulnerability was safe, only to realize your pain was their source of pride. There is a certain darkness in those who can watch another break and feel empowered by it. It reveals not strength, but cowardice. It reveals not confidence, but a heart so empty they fill it with the suffering of others. And they laughed. They laughed at your brokenness, your shattered trust, your silent prayers. But God, in His perfect justice, never lets laughter born of cruelty echo forever. The same mouths that laughed at your pain will taste the bitterness of lament. The same hearts that danced upon your sorrow will carry the weight of their own. You see, there is a law written into the fabric of life, a divine order that cannot be ignored. What you sow into others, you reap into yourself. They sowed mockery into your heartbreak. They treated your pain like entertainment, convinced there would never be consequences. But life is patient. God is thorough. He allows them to laugh for a season, long enough to expose their true nature. And then the season shifts. Their laughter fades. The joy they built on your suffering withers. The confidence they displayed turns to dust. And one day, they find themselves standing in the same ruins they once mocked you for. But here's the difference. Their lament will be heavier. Their heartbreak will cut deeper. Not because God enjoys suffering, but because He teaches through it. He turns laughter into lament, not to destroy, but to reveal, to show them the weight of what they did, to humble the proud, to remind them that no human stands above the laws of justice. The ones who found joy in your tears will one day shed tears of their own, and when they do, their laughter will seem distant, their arrogance foolish, their mockery empty. Because the God who watched you break is the same God who writes the final chapter, and He knows how to turn entertainment into lament and pride into a lesson no one can ignore. You were their target, but now divine justice makes them taste what they thought they escaped. There's an ache in being targeted by those you once trusted. It isn't just the betrayal that wounds. It's the realization that someone deliberately aimed their cruelty at you. They could have chosen peace. They could have chosen respect. But instead they chose to make you the target of their jealousy, their bitterness, their hidden insecurities. You saw the signs, the quiet disrespect, the subtle jabs, the conversations behind your back. At first you tried to dismiss them, believing their conscience would awaken, their heart would soften. But the more you extended grace, the more they sharpened their arrows. And when they finally struck, they did it without hesitation, without shame. They targeted you not because you were weak, but because your light exposed their darkness. Your kindness confronted their cruelty. Your peace irritated the chaos they carried inside. And instead of healing their brokenness, they pointed their bitterness at you. You became their target, the one they could humiliate, betray, manipulate. They believed that if they could break you, they would feel powerful. That if they could wound you, they would heal themselves. But pain doesn't work that way. You cannot heal by destroying others. You cannot grow by wounding the innocent. And here's what they never understood. When you make someone your target, you invite the eyes of God into the story. They thought they escaped accountability. They thought their actions would dissolve with time, that your silence meant weakness, that God's patience meant indifference. But divine justice does not forget. It does not overlook. It does not excuse. There is a moment designed by heaven where the oppressor becomes the oppressed, where the one who targeted others becomes the target of consequence. Not by human hands, but by the natural, unavoidable order of divine justice. And now, as life unfolds, they taste what they believed they escaped. The heartbreak they poured onto you now visits their own doorstep. The humiliation they orchestrated now lingers in their own shadow. The rejection they thought would crush you now isolates them. It doesn't happen all at once. God allows time to stretch, gives room for reflection, for repentance. But when pride remains, when cruelty festers, the fall becomes inevitable. And the ones who once celebrated your suffering find themselves living the pain they once dismissed. They may not tell the world, they may hide their regret behind forced smiles and empty victories, but inside they know. Their actions circled back. Their choices have a price, and the justice they thought they could outrun now rests on their shoulders. You were their target, But heaven has a way of turning stories around. You no longer stand broken beneath their cruelty. You stand guarded, protected, held together by the same God they forgot was watching. And they now walk through the very valley they led you through, not out of revenge, but as a lesson. Not to destroy them, but to remind them. Pain is not a weapon to be played with. It always returns to its sender. So now you stand at a different crossroads, not as the broken, but as the rising, not as the victim, but as the one God is vindicating. You've tasted the bitter ache of betrayal, the humiliation of public heartbreak, the loneliness that comes when people target your peace and mistake your gentleness for weakness. But hear me, and hear me well. God never sleeps on injustice. They hurt you without shame. They took what wasn't theirs. They mocked your tears, built their confidence on your collapse, and believed their season of power would last forever. But the author of heaven does not allow stories of cruelty to end unfinished. Divine justice always arrives, sometimes softly, sometimes loudly, but always completely. Those who wounded the innocent will one day be wounded by their own pride. Those who laughed at your heartbreak will weep under the weight of their own. Those who targeted your peace will watch their own comfort crumble. And those who believed they escaped consequence will wake to the reality that God never misses a moment. This isn't about revenge, this is about restoration. This is about the sacred, undeniable truth that pain returns to its sender, that justice is written into the laws of life, and that no betrayal, no arrogance, no cruelty escapes the hands of a just and holy God. So lift your head, wipe your tears. Your heartbreak was seen, your pain was recorded, and your story is far from over. The same God who watched them hurt you is the same God preparing to let them taste the same hurt until they understand. You cannot harm the pure without heaven intervening. And when justice speaks, it speaks loudly, clearly, and undeniably.